as standard with these things, if you could mute yourselves when not speaking, that just makes things a little smoother. And because all we're going to do is sort of just a Q&A, people seem keen to be able to ask questions, and that was the feedback from the other one. And so if you want to ask a question, then you can do that. There's an electronic way of raising a hand, but I don't think we need to do that. If you just put your hand up, and if you want to talk, I'll try and make sure that the person who's talking doesn't talk forever, and you get a chance to have your say. So does that sound like it'll work? Okay, great. So if you can mute yourselves, unless anyone's got anything to say to start with. Who anybody like to? I was just saying what I've been doing this last week, which I'm very fortunate. I've been able to get out in the hills, and and it's better. Well, today was lovely up on Bowfell. It was a really still day, and it was lovely to be out. There wasn't much left over from the thaw, but the turf is really frozen, and the snow that's there is absolutely rock hard. So it'd be very unforgiving if you had a trip or a slip on it. But we are forecast up here anyway to get quite a bit of snow up on the mountains tonight and tomorrow. So that should be good. Anyway, so does anybody want to start off by asking anything, or anything you want to know?
What have you done with Chris? What have you done with Anne, Chris?
What have I done with Anne? Yes. Where's my better half? She's feeling a bit flaky tonight. It was a visit to the vets earlier. No, it wasn't. It was she was just feeling tired, so she just said, would it be all right if I did it on my own? So I seem to be managing all right so far. So hopefully so she's just feeling tired.
That was a great picture. She put up a view, that black and white picture on the Facebook page. Did
you recognise it as being me?
Well, I studied it for a little while. I was like looking at all the features and everything, but it's funny because a friend of mine sent me one a couple of months ago of me when I was away, and I was about 17, 18.
Yes.
And when you look back, it's frightening.
Yeah, that was down at Swanage. Did you see the woolly breeks I was wearing?
Yeah.
No top, but woolly breeks. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
You had to climb in. Yeah, then you had to climb in red socks and woolly breeks.
Yeah, and even in those days, we had longer hair then, Chris.
Yeah.
Even me.
Yeah. That was when I could grow it. I think my son's getting the maximum hair growing now, so he's got a huge ginger afro, so he's taking full advantage of being able to grow hair. So maybe later on he'll use it all up.
It's good to see pictures like that, but it is pretty frightening.
Yeah.
I've got a question, Chris.
Go for it.
So I haven't been winter climbing this season for obvious reasons, but when I do go, I'm in a toss up between what rope to sometimes use for various grades. So I have a 60 mil non-dry treated cragging climbing rope.
Yeah.
And then I have twin 8.3 dry treated ropes. Now, like when I'm climbing on sort of grade 3 or 4, I probably use the twin 8.3s dry treated. But if I'm just going for a bit of a romp up a grade 2 gully or something, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to solo it or whether I use the rope or something, sometimes I'll just take a single 8.3 dry treated rope, which is designated a half rope, but I just use it as a single rope.
Yeah.
Rather than risk taking the non-dry treated rope and risk it getting a bit frozen.
Yeah.
Any comments on that?
So I can give you the official comment and then my own personal opinion.
Yeah, well, I know the official comment, so don't bother with that one.
Okay, so yeah, so but you know, just so that everyone's clear, that half ropes you're not supposed to lead on their own, but we all know it that as climbers, very often you'll fall onto a half rope and on its own, and they work fine, you know. So I think that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does as well. So you basically would do exactly the same as me.
Yes, yeah. I mean, a good, really good compromise when you come to buy maybe a replacement for your 50-meter, you know, kind of cragging rope is something like a Beal Joker, which
Yeah,
is 9.1, and it's actually a triple rated rope. So it's rated as a single, half, and a twin.
yeah. I did see that when I was because my new 60-meter rope is single rope is quite new actually, and I was umming and ahhing about what to buy, but I thought I'd probably end up just trashing it pretty quickly and using it a lot more in the next year or two, and I just wanted something that was a bit heavier than a 9.1. I can't remember what I went for in the end. I don't think it was over 10.
No.
But
Yeah, so that is, it's interesting. So I had one of the first Beal Jokers when they first came out, and it didn't last 5 minutes. I trashed it in no time. However, this generation of Jokers I've just replaced with another set of Jokers because they've been absolutely brilliant, and they've taken loads and loads of hammer. I've now cut them in half because they were 60s, and I just use them as half ropes on MLs, and you know, dragging them around short rope with them and doing all sorts of elusive things, and they're still lasting fine. So they're actually a really tough ropes, and they've got this unicore construction, which is brilliant. It means it's much harder to cut. So whilst they're thinner, they're much harder to cut the sheath and separate, you know, so they're much less prone to damage than actually some fatter ropes.
Okay, just keeping on ropes quickly. So I've got an old 10.9 single rope, non-dry treated. I did take it winter climbing actually up great end, and my mate stood on it with his crampon and cut a hole in it about 10 meters from the end. So I cut about 15 meters off it, so it's 35 meters now, and I use it for my indoor climbing rope.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know the answer to this question, hence why I'm asking it. But when I use it indoor climbing a lot, it goes very oval.
Yeah.
And I do pull it through every now and again, and I'll lead, I don't know, maybe a set 5 off one end, and then I'll lead a set 5 off the other end. Is there a problem with it going oval? Is there any way that I can stop it going too oval?
No, I mean, the only thing to do in a climbing wall is where you regularly, or sport climbing, is turn it over regularly. So during a climbing session, rather than just leading on one end of it all the time, you swap it regularly.
Yeah, that's what I do. So
yeah, no, I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't. It doesn't seem to matter what shape they are. Ropes are amazingly tough.
Okay, thank you.
It's quite interesting. People get very funny about ropes, and you know, taking falls on them and stuff like that. And it's really interesting. Since the BMC sort of technical committee was set up, which was quite a long time ago, there's been no ropes that have snapped in normal use. So ropes that have been, old ropes have cut over edges, new ropes have cut over edges, old ropes have cut over edges, you know, so ropes cut over edges, you know, so you do have to be careful with edges, and obviously that, but ropes, modern rope manufacture is very tough, and so whilst you want to throw one away if it's got obvious damage on it, or cut the bit out, you know, then, but they are amazingly tough, you know.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And also store them away from chemicals and stuff, and out of the light, and you know, things like that. Anybody else got any other questions then?
I know it's not much help to most of us, but I'm a little curious. Are the conditions for climbing in the lakes at the moment then, for winter?
Yeah.
You kind of touched on it, but yeah, so stuff is in.
It's been brilliant. It's been, I mean, unfortunately, it has been absolutely brilliant. It's been one of the best Januaries that I can remember, for quite a long time for winter climbing. And and I think, interestingly, they've got loads more snow, so it's much better for skiing in Scotland. And they've had some good ski conditions in Wales, but actually I think we've had the best climbing conditions.
Okay.
Not too much snow, but what's been there has been good.
Yeah, one of my colleagues lives in Kingussie, so he's getting a lot of skiing done at the moment. He seems quite happy, although some quite high avalanche, risk obviously kind of on Pacific slopes. But he's locked down in an area where, like some of us, I guess, get to play in our local backyard, and some of our backyards have fun stuff in, but maybe not necessarily always exactly what you want.
No, that's right. Yeah, so yeah, it's an interesting one actually, because I had a friend who I really like and respect, and she wrote to me and just said, I'm not sure that you should be putting these pictures up of things that you've been doing. And I thought, yeah, okay. And so I said, thanks for your comment, and I really will consider it. And I did have a good think about whether I should be putting things up or not. But then I thought, well, actually, for the people that live locally, it's an information service. I'm giving them conditions reports. And for the people that don't live locally, I think quite a lot of people still like to see what's going on, like to see what's happening in the mountains. And I know that some people have got all a bit funny about, whether we should go out or not and stuff. But, there's been, I mean, I talked to the police about it and they said there was absolutely no problem. If you're traveling locally, South Lakes for anybody from sort of Kendal or Windermere, or, that they consider that all to be local.
So her point of view was that you were encouraging people to travel there.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't really. That was, well, really, she was just concerned that people have been getting quite upset about all sorts of things and offloading onto people that have maybe been going and enjoying the mountains, So,
I got quite a bit of that in the first lockdown. I think the first lockdown, people were like, oh, well, how can you put pictures up of the hills and things? And they're getting a bit funny about it. But I've put pictures up from the last few weeks where I've been out, locally, South Lakes area. And everyone's been really positive about it and liked to see them and just sort of said how lucky you are.
Well, that's it. And it was different in the first lockdown. And I didn't actually post anything. I didn't go really on the hills at all in the first lockdown. I just did what they said, which was, I just ran from home and, and that's pretty much what I did. I've got, you'll know, up on Brantfell, I went bouldering a bit, but, that's all I did, which I can do walking from home. Where this one, they're just saying stay local, which the local police are interpreting as, if you're in Kendal and you want to go to Langdale, that's fine. Or, they're saying, don't travel widely. I can't go to Scotland. I can't go to Wales. I can't, there's lots of places I can't go, but I live in the South Lakes. And if I'm staying in the South Lakes on Helvellyn or wherever, then that's, they think that's fine,
I don't think they're really interested in people from Cumbria. I've been up to Glenridding. I think the only thing is the local residents, my bubble's in Glenridding, and apparently they've got a community WhatsApp group, and there's quite a lot of, should we say, active comments on there about people coming. But again, it was more focused at people who come from like Liverpool and things like that. So.
Yeah. Yes, and I think that's why I had this conversation with this police lady. She just came and said to me, where you know, where are you from? Because I've got an old van, where a lot of you have seen it, that I just drive around in, and it is registered as a camper van. You know, it is a camper van, and they were just concerned that I was up here camping. You know, and which is, you know, totally fair enough. And they just said. And I sort of, you know, where have you come from? And I said, well, Windermere. And they said, oh, that's fine. You know, we were just worried that you'd be up here camping. And I said, no, I'm not. You know, I'm going to stay in my own house. You know, you know. So they were concerned and they were checking up. And yeah.
Does that mean Cornwall's just a bit too far to travel?
I think Cornwall's probably a bit too far. Yeah, unfortunately. I'd quite like to go to Cornwall. It's supposed to be lovely. Go
Well,
rock
if you ever
climbing.
pass it, you can always knock on the door.
Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome anytime.
Great.
We'll get
Thank
past
you.
the barriers out of Cumbria first.
Yeah, out of Cumbria. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
Chris, with regards to the mountain leader D log, if you are going out in the fells and it's snowy,
Yes.
can you log that as a QMD, or is it a winter QMD, or do we just put it on as anything?
Yeah, just log it. You know, so strictly speaking, winter QMDs are supposed to be separate from summer QMDs, and you're not supposed to count them. But clearly, when I'm looking at somebody's logbook, well, this is my take on it anyway. When I'm looking at the logbook, I'm just looking to see what they've done. And, you know, let's say they're a little bit short on a few days, you know, but I look and see they've got, I don't know, loads of international days that were really good. And, you know, some winter days, and they've done a bit in the Alps in the summer. You know, you kind of go, you know, that's great then. You know, that the QMDs are an interesting thing because people see them as an obstacle, and in fact they're not. They're like a step ladder to get you over the bar. You know, so there's the bar, and the more steps you've already gone up, and if you've already gone up over here, you just hop over the top, and you'll go, oh, that was easy enough. And I've been fortunate. I've talked to quite a lot of friends of mine that do more assessing and stuff, and assess at national centres. And they seem to get a lot of weak candidates. Very often, all my candidates pass. Okay. You know, and they're really strong. And I sometimes think, well, why is that? And I think partly the mentoring thing. I think it works. You know, that people know where to get to, and you know. You know, so, and generally I just seem to get really nice people that are really switched on. You know, I've had a few people that were interesting characters, you know, where you kind of go, oh wow, you know, yeah, you really don't know much, you know, and then you do have to fail them, or you know, ask them to come back again, or you know. And some of the people that I've trained and have been very involved in their training still haven't quite got there. You know, they haven't quite consolidated enough, and still have to come back and be deferred. But most of them seem to do really well, and you know, just have a good week because they're already above the bar. You know, so if you see QMDs as a positive thing, the reason that it's why the mountain training awards are actually really nice to run, because they're set up to pass. If you've done more than you needed to do before you come on your training course, then you should be in a headspace to hear what the person's got to say, the trainer's got to say. And then if you do more than you need to do in the consolidation, or at least what they've recommended, then you should be ready when you come back to pass, you know, and most people are, you know, so yeah, certainly I get a very high percentage of passes. if I get outright fails, I think, to my knowledge, I think I've only ever had one outright fail that was able to finish the course. You know, somebody might turn an ankle or get flu, or, you know, something, and they can't, for some reason, finish the course. You know, and then obviously they can't pass because they didn't finish it. You know, but they're sort of, you know, that's nothing anyone can do about that. It's just one of those things. But yeah, other people, yeah.
So can you log? I've done a few where I've been out in the hills and done a run, which would, if it was walking, it would take a group, or if you were with someone else, probably take all day. But it's actually taken me 2 or 3 hours.
Yes.
But Stu, I did my training with, said that you could count running as a QMD depending on the length and what you do.
Yeah.
But do I log it as a fell run or do I log it as a QMD? I get really confused with the D log.
Yes. Okay. You can log it as a run, or you could log it as a QMD. You know, if it has been a good, you know, say you've done the Fairfield Horseshoe, you know, and as a walk, that would take most people, you know, longish day, wouldn't it? You know, it's about 16K, I think. You know, so, but you might have done it in a few hours as a runner. But I would still put it down as a day, you know. It's more the problem with running, okay, and I've assessed quite a lot of runners. The problem with running is that they don't actually look at the map very often.
Yeah.
So as long as you mix in days that make you look at the map because you're looking for small features and you're going off path, you know, so quality mountain days are funny things, you know, and I did a blog post on what I consider to be some quality mountain days in the lakes, just because I get asked a lot, and all I did was pick up a map and go, well, that'd be a really good day. Right, if you went along here and then you spent all this time looking for that feature there, that feature there, that feature there, and I did it somewhere where you might have a big path going along a ridge like that, and I sent them off right round the side of the hill here, so that, and picking up lots of little features, so that when they got confused and, you know, tired or just didn't really know where they were, at any point they could then just follow that back up for sort of 500 meters or something, find a path, find about where they were again, and then head off again. Do you see? So as long as you're running doesn't, you know, quite often runners just run, and they, you know, I get comments like, well, I just run until I find something that I recognize, which is fine, you know, like, but obviously for your mountain leader, you need to be looking at the map more often than that. Yes, Arthur.
Might do this already, but once, a long time ago now, but after I did my training, I recorded everything in an A5 notebook. So whether it was rock climbing, trekking, hill walking, so it didn't matter what category it was in, I just had a nice diary of what quality days I'd done in the mountains. And I could also include things like the accommodation, who I was with, the weather, little technical things about if ever I come back, things like that. So it's ended up being quite a nice, I can always go back and see what I've done when, and then effectively copied the relevant sections into my ML logbook, which is a lot shorter. Does anyone else do anything similar, or?
Do you know, I used to, and now I'm really guilty. I just upload GPS, add a photo, write a few words about kind of what I learned, particularly for the winter stuff, which is probably my main focus, you know, try and add in the kind of winter mountaineering skills. But I've got books, I've got them up here from my university days, where it's, yeah, like route descriptions, who I was climbing with, things I enjoyed about it, and yeah, I'm glad I did it. I'm definitely lazy now, and like I say, it's just easy to export out of Strava, upload it automatically. It works out which hills I've been up to the top of. It does seem, I mean, I do a bit of canoeing as well, and I know a lot of the canoeists, I don't know if any of you are canoeists as well, a little bit jealous that, okay, D-log's not perfect, but it is a big step forward in like actually being able to kind of store this data digitally, and kind of provide that. And I don't know what Chris's experience with looking at all these candidate data, how it compares to flicking through a paper book, but I'm hoping it provides you with a dashboard to give you a bit of a feeling for where people have been.
It does give you a feeling, but also you know, just like Joe said there, it's quite hard for people to work out, you know, is this a QMD or is it not? Do I log this or do I not? And the good thing about what Arthur said is that what I'm looking for is a holistic, I'm looking for an overview, you know. So if you looked at what I'd done in the last few months, you'd see somebody that had actually been out a lot in the winter, you know. And some of those, quite a lot of those days have just been going up Red Screech, taking the dog for a walk, and probably soloing. I've got a route that I solo around, and it's sort of, it's got some grade 6 moves on it. It's quite hard in places, you know, like, but it's always above a big snowy ledge, and so I reckon I feel pretty confident on it. I mean, I could hurt myself, but you know. But I do that really regularly. But even that, so you go, okay, is that a QMD? Well, of course it's not. But it's relevant winter experience, and I've done it loads of times in the last few weeks, you know, like so. And then I have done other days where I did a bigger day out on a proper mountain and did proper routes, you know, like. But all of it's relevant. It's all relevant experience.
Would you fail somebody just on, so if you had a very good candidate, would you fail them because their logbook didn't reflect they've done enough things? You know, so there's nothing technically wrong with anything they do for the assessment, but could you get deferred just purely on the fact that they've effectively been too lazy to write it up in all likelihood?
I can defer people. I tend not to. So all I do is talk to them. You know, so before they come, I say to them, look, because very often I've talked to them or I know them anyway, and I go, look, I know you've done loads of stuff, but your logbook's not showing it. And mountain training do phone me up before the course and sometimes afterwards and say, this person's logbook's not got enough in it. Why haven't you, you know, why have you passed them, or why have you, and I have to, so I just say to them, look, give me fodder, you know, give me something to defend you with, you know, like, and like you were saying, D-log is not perfect. So somebody might have done, say, a trip, or let's say they've walked the West Highland Way, you know, and that'll act as that's one entry,
yeah,
you know, and so, you know, and yet it's taken them a week, you know, so, and there's some really good days in there as part of that. And some of them will be really good days and some of them won't be very good, but you know, but that, you know, that's still a, you know, it's a multi-day trip, and people have been, you know, I had a chap who was a Marine and he'd done loads of Arctic warfare stuff. And of course, quite a lot of living out and in the Arctic is actually pretty relevant to looking after yourself in a cold mountain environment. And yet it looked like on his logbook, he'd done like, he'd put one day because it was one entry. But actually when you went and read it, he'd been there for 2 months, you know, being out training and stuff in the mountains for 2 months, but it only showed up as being a one-time event. So yeah, so there we go. So if you can make it easy for me when you put it in to defend you, that's important for me. Yeah.
Chris, could they sorry, carry on.
Yeah, go for it, Alistair. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I had a funny thing with my sort of QMDs when I was doing my training. I did my training with Steve Spalding. I don't know if you know him.
Steve Spalding, yeah. I've known Steve for, since I was 16.
No. So he was great, as I'm sure you know. And when asked, you know, what are some tips during consolidation for your QMDs, he just said just go and wander around some Corbetts. Because obviously Corbetts, you know, they're not the Munros. People don't go and bag them. There are literally no paths on Corbetts at all.
Yeah.
I've probably walked up about 50 in the last couple of years, and yeah, there are absolutely no paths at all, and they are great for QMDs. But interestingly, during my consolidation, it caught me out a little bit because I went to North Wales with my school buddies for a little trip, and it was sort of the shoulder season. It was sort of semi-winter, semi-summer, but the cloud was down, and we were doing a bit of navigation. And I remember taking a bearing, walking off, and coming across a couple of paths. I hadn't come across paths for months. And my mates just wanted to follow the path, and I was like, but I don't know where it goes. And it was, it caught me out, actually. It really did. And in the end, we didn't follow the path, and we ended up just sort of bisecting it every few hundred meters. We just ended up crossing it again. But yeah, local knowledge helps a lot there. But when you're not used to it, just go with what you know, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, and so what you're saying there is get good quality experience both where there are paths.
Yeah.
Because quite often the path actually on the ground isn't where it's marked on the map. So you need to be able to read the ground and decide whether this path that is here is the one that's marked on the map or not. You know, which is, yeah, that's a different skill, isn't it? Like you're saying,
very different
than it is finding your way around an untracked hillside. You know, so and both are good. You know, like, but if you only do one, either or, then that's probably not good. You know, but a combination of the both is definitely good. Yeah.
Agreed. Just keeping quickly on the QMDs. So it's sort of a similar question. That sort of I'm trying to sort of work up my winter QMDs, probably a little bit like Richard.
Yeah.
And I reckon I pretty much meet the prerequisites for the training, but it's the whole climbing thing. Like I've got plenty of grade 1, 2 climbs, which I know you only need for the assessment. But I guess, like, to give an example, like last year I went into Red Tarn Crags. I think I did Gully 1, Gully 2. Then I came back down Squirrel Edge and stuff like that. So, you know, that's a couple of climbs that I can log individually there, and then I can log a whole QMD for the entire day. Because although I did go there to go climbing, actually the majority of the day was just traveling around the mountains in the winter.
Yeah.
Is that a comfortable approach to take, to log a QMD and to log the climb separately?
Yes, I think that's okay. So it's interesting. So a friend of mine who, he's a bit of a machine really, and he was going through his guides, and I was mentoring him for that, and quite often he would do, like, we were going ski touring from Chamonix to Zermatt, and then and he was coming along with me, and then as like we would do our normal day as a part of a guided day, and then every day he would nip off and do at least 2 other mountains and then come back down to the hut again. And he was saying, well, can I log all those as different days? And I said, well, yes, because most people wouldn't, you know, it's not normal to do what you're doing. So they're all like different days, you know, like, and so, yeah, so he logged them all, you know, because they're all relevant experience. But again, it's seeing the thing as a step so that you're ready for your assessment rather than an obstacle.
Yeah, agreed.
But Alistair, have you done your training yet?
No.
I'm happy to talk about my experiences, you know, one-to-one at some point, if you ever got any, because I mean, I did mine a little, unfortunately, it's not been very good Scottish winter. I've had a few attempts to try and get some quality days in since, including 3 months off work to spend a lot of it in Scotland, and basically there's been, you know, no snow. But for my take on the training was that I mean, I hadn't done any climbing. I mean, other than that route we did, Chris, last year, I haven't really done any proper winter climbing for, you know, 2 decades, and I don't feel that was a problem on my training. I felt, you know, that there was some moving on steep ground, but the kind of stuff you'd get if you're out walking. And for me, the best preparation was I probably wasn't fit enough. There was some absolutely stunningly fit, just like, because you spend an awful lot of time digging in the snow and walking around in horrendous weather in low visibility, and just digging's hard work. I work in IT, so I'm not used to, you know, manual. So like walking hills for days is quite nice, but then, you know, doing a bit of pottering around in the hills, walking up, get into the good snow, and then just hours of digging bucket seats and just digging nav and more digging. So I'd say for me the prep would be just get as fit as you can, so you can learn. Less worried about, you know, like being fit because you want to be some kind of machine, but just so that, I think for me, at the end of the day, I wasn't learning as much as some of the others, because the others, they were just fitter than me.
That's a really good point, Richard. Yeah, that's great. You know, and I see that if people, you know, people are just not quite as fit as others, then towards the end of the day, their heads just go down, you know, and it is just, I often say that as a guide, I spent years, well, from leaving school, kind of working 6 months of the year, working 3 months on a building site, and then climbing for 3 months, working for 3 months on a building site, and then climbing for 3 months. And I reckon actually that was some of the best preparation for me being a guide, you know, because it just gets you really physically strong. You know, I was just picking up bricks all the time, or else I was climbing mountains, you know, like, and I think partly why I still, you know, I climb a lot now with 20-something-year-olds I was out, you know, and I seem to still be able to keep up with them. I think it's partly because all that stuff that I did as a teenager, I laid a good, strong foundation, and so that's paid dividends, you know. So my body's basically fundamentally strong. I don't get injured very much, although I think if I stopped, I'd just fall to bits.
Can I ask you about the IML, Chris?
Sure.
So can you go straight from ML to IML, and how much of a step up is it?
Okay, you can. The IML, they used to ask you to do winter ML training, as a prerequisite, but they've reordered it and made it so that you can. I think it's an either or now. You can do either the winter ML or you can do the IML units. So I think you can do, yeah. So you can do.
I don't want to disagree with you, Chris, but I think you have to do the winter component for the training for the IML.
No,
so you have to do the training, but not the assessment.
No, he's wrong. It's all right.
Am I? Okay. Yeah. No, it's fine.
It's all right.
I've read the guidance, but maybe I misunderstood it.
Kelvin James is quite a good friend of mine, and he's chair of BayMel, and I've asked him about it.
So what's that mean? If you've got your full winter ML, or just your winter ML training? Maybe I don't understand.
No. Okay. Good. Yeah. So what they used to have, which is what you're saying, is absolutely right, Richard. You used to have to do your winter ML training before you could do your IML, but now they've made their own modules which basically cover the same sort of syllabus stuff, but more tailored to the IML.
Okay, I meant it the other way around. I thought you had to do, even if you had done your winter ML training in Scotland, and you've done your winter ML assessment, you still have to do the IML.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Because it covers snowshoeing and completely.
No, you're right.
The syllabus is completely different.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Sorry for hijacking your question, Louise.
No,
say that again.
I'm also when I'm not frantically trying to figure out how to do my winter ML living in the Peak District, I'm also quite keen to understand how I can do my IML living in the Peak District, and with obviously the challenges we all have around just finding time to go to beautiful places to get the days in.
Yeah. No. So did you get what he said there, Lou, or not?
No.
Okay. So yeah. So it was confusing. Yeah, and I got confused. So sorry about that, Richard. Yeah. So so basically, IML, they have their own units, their own way of doing it, and you don't have to do your winter ML. And even if you've done your winter ML, you still have to do the IML units.
Okay. Okay.
But I think this is right, because for me, the stuff I've done in winter in the Alps, particularly the less serious stuff where you're snowshoeing in the Vosges or the Black Forest, it's a completely different skill set to walking in Scotland. You know, you're on snowshoes, which we don't generally use. You're, you know, like there's probably more, like there's different risks around avalanches. You've got huts, so you're kind of walking, you know, you're walking between kind of cafes, which again, I mean, Scotland is just completely different, isn't it? So it does feel different to me.
And to get that training, you have to go to the Alps or somewhere like that, yeah? No one offers that training here.
No. So there's the BMAL, British IML Federation, you know, that they offer. So the first parts of it are done in Wales.
Okay.
Or Scotland.
Or Scotland.
I don't want to annoy Sandy.
No, that's right. Yeah, that's true. Yes, Wales or Scotland. Yes, Sandy Patterson. Yeah, yeah, yes. So yeah, Wales or Scotland. So the initial parts are done in the UK. And it's not a huge step up. It's more of a broadening of your skill base than a step up per se. You know, so there is a speed test that you need to do, which sort of sounds scary for your sort of, but you don't have to run around it. It's just you need to be able to navigate efficiently and against the clock. You know, but the time frame is fairly big, and you sort of go around an orienteering course basically, and come back, but you know, you don't have to. It's not like you have to be a really good runner. A friend of mine who's done a lot of running, who he's pretty old, and he went through the IML, and he was back about 2 hours before everybody else. And the bloke assessing him kind of went, "What are you doing back? You know, did you hurt yourself or something?" And he said, "No, I've done it." And he said, "Oh, righto. Oh, good. Well, go and have a cup of tea then." You know, like, and everybody else came in drips and drabs, you know, kind of hours and hours later. But you know, yes, whilst it's against the clock, it's not a difficult thing to achieve if you're a good navigator. You know, if you can read the ground well, if you can, you know, move well over the ground, you know, it's achievable. So before you went for it, if you've done your ML a while ago, it would be good to sharpen up those skills and do a bit of orienteering. Probably would be a useful prep as part of that. Yeah. But it's not a big step up. It's broadening your base, but nowhere is it a big step up from ML.
Okay.
And in some ways, because you're expected to follow paths that are fairly well marked, you know, it's different skill sets. You know, like so you're supposed to know more about a little bit about how to use sort of fixed gear. You know, using a sling and a crab to safeguard people on a ladder, and plant, flower, fallen floor is a big part of it. You know, but yeah, so it's different, but it's not. But
you have to get QMDs, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you'll have to go out to the Alps or these beautiful places and go walking. It'd be terrible. Yeah.
You can use. They need to be international for your. So correct me if I'm wrong, Chris. But my understanding is they need to be international for your summer, and you can't use your UK stuff. But for the winter component, you can use Scottish days, and I can't remember for the ratio or something. But if you're, so from my perspective, I've done an awful lot of stuff around the world in summer conditions. I'm a little bit limited to what I've done in winter conditions outside the UK. So most of mine, when I completed my registration, most of my winter days were Scottish winter days that I'd logged. With a few days snowshoeing in like the Vosges and stuff, and that seemed fine. So it does feel. I think my understanding is if you've done a bit of Scottish stuff, then the big focus is making sure you've got enough kind of international trekking days. And yeah, it is awful because you get to go to these places where it doesn't rain so much and go walking in beautiful mountains. So I have to say, I really enjoyed that bit.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Anybody else? Or are you done? Was that everything, Lou? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Dave. Yeah.
Yeah. For fear of being a bit boring and going back to the D-log, would let's say like the Altavia, which is 14 days or so, would that class as one, or would that class as, how many days would that class as?
Okay, it depends how you've logged it in your log. So you could log a 14-day event and it'd be one event, or you could log each day as separate days and then it would show up as 14 days. So it all depends on, it is a bit of a weakness of the D-log that, you know, that it doesn't pick up that it's a multi-day event.
So if that would be 14 entries, and then for argument's sake, like in the Dolomites, the same on the Altavia 2, that's another 12. So instead of like, you know, that would probably add up to about 25 days. I think would it be best just to sort of like write, you know, a description of like the whole sort of like 14 days, rather than write them individually. That makes sense.
I mean, so the more information you can give them about what you learned. So for me, I'm looking for, like Richard said, I thought, and I think Arthur said this, in people's logbooks, I'm looking for comments like, I had a really hard time here, this went a bit pear-shaped, and this is what I've learned from it.
Yeah.
Those sort of comments to me are super, super valuable. You know, I'm looking for people in order to, because it's a leadership qualification, and the crucial part of being a leader is this didn't go as well as it should have done, or I would have liked to have done, and I've learned this from it. You know, as part of the guide's application, you have to put notable failures, they call it.
All right, okay. Yeah.
You know, so things that
we've had a few of them.
Epics, basically. You know, like, you know, they want to see that you've gone out, and I quite often, you know, when I say to my clients, I say, you know, you're just give me a few quid to these things that I'm teaching you nearly killed me. You know, they nearly killed me learning them, and you paid me a few quid and you're getting them cheap. You know, which is to a degree true. You know, but those you know, and so I thought Arthur's comment about the way that you logged them. And Richard's the way that the modern way of logging them, that is a definite weakness. So I would try to include in however you log it through Strava and stuff, some notes supplementary to that to show any learning.
But there's plenty of place for description, isn't there?
Yeah.
I was sort of like fearful. I was told that not to write too much because you know, obviously there's a lot to get through. But like I say, I mean, you know, everyone's had epic days and had to recover for them. So yeah, I get the picture.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't want it on every day, every detail of every cup of tea you had, but you know, but when you know, you know, and every plate of pasta or whatever, you know,
yeah, I get it. Yeah. Okay. And the other question was, I think I just noticed this the other day. I was doing some reading that is it 20 days you're allowed overseas for your D-log, or is that too much?
Sorry, what? 20? I'm not sure.
Is it 20 days of you know, outside the UK that you're allowed?
It's basically, we're allowed to take into consideration half of your international days.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Where they're relevant, like I said, like, you know, the Tour de Mont Blanc or something like that is, you basically follow the signposts and the paint blobs.
Yeah, no, I haven't done that, so that's a bit
you know, whereas other things like, what's the one in Corsica, like
GR20.
Yeah, that. Yeah, so that's like full on mountaineering. You know, it's scrambling. It's they're proper big mountain days. And okay, there are some blobs of paint, but you actually have to find your way around, and you're walking, well, scrambling through quite often. Really,
there's days like that on the Alta Via too.
There you go. So there you go.
Yeah, I get it. Thanks. Great.
Yeah. So we're supposed to try and count days that are relevant. Yeah.
So
thanks.
Yes, Joe.
So if you're not getting any epic fails, does that mean we're not pushing ourselves hard enough?
Not trying hard enough. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. No, they don't have to be epic fails. I think for the guys they want
like
to see,
falling in a bog or something. It's like minor fails.
minor fails, more lessons learned from the day. You know, I thought it was going to be a really nice day, so I left my waterproofs at home. You know, and then I got out there and it was crap. You know, and I've learned to, you know, that I should take my waterproofs even if the forecast looks like it's going to be okay. That, you know, things like that. Or I went out with this group and they were so disparate in their ability, and it was just a nightmare trying to keep them together. Or you know, those sort of things are really valuable. Yeah, you know, to see, because that's what happens when you go out with people. And just the randomness of stuff. Like I'll give you an example. So when I first started instructing, I used to say to people, right, have you got, and I still would with you guys here, say, so have you got your waterproofs? Have you got your harness, your helmet, your crampons, your ice axe? Yeah, got all that. Yeah, got your flask in it. Yeah, and you just run through it and sort of go quick tick list, or I actually give them a packing list the night before, you know, say, look, this is what I want to have in your bag, which most of the time works just fine. But for groups that haven't really been out much, you ask them, have you got a pair of waterproofs? And you're in Langdale, and they say yes. And what they mean is they've got some, but they're in Manchester. You know, so you suddenly realise that you didn't ask the right question at the beginning of the day, so you didn't get the answer, or the answer that you got wasn't the one you were expecting, or it was the answer, it was a truthful answer, but it wasn't the one you were really looking for. So for instance, like groups, if I'm taking groups out and I know it's going to be crap weather, I'll say, right, show me your waterproofs, show me your jacket, show me your trousers, show me your water bottle, show me your sandwiches, you know, like, let's have a look at it. And in the back of my car, I have a load of spare kit to give them to supplement whatever they didn't have. And then when I take them out, I know what they're going to get into, you know. So, or even if I don't have enough kit to give out, I will then turn back a lot sooner than I would have if I'd known that they were going to have good kit, you know. So, but I'm basically making it knowledge based. I think MLs quite often will go out on the hill with that huge great rucksack, and they say, I've got spares for everything, for everybody, for every eventuality, but they basically can't walk up the hill or keep up with the group, or, you know, or they're absolutely exhausted by the end of the day because they've got everything they could ever possibly need. Well, I try and take what I think I'm going to need, and I try and make sure my clients have all the right kit before I take them out onto the hill, you know, rather than me carrying a load of spare kit. So there's two different ways to end up with you, because what you want is well-equipped clients, isn't it? The people you're looking after, and there's different ways to achieve that. That's all I'm saying. And certainly I think light is right. And again, I think my knees are still just about okay, because I've done a lot of miles in the mountains with as light as I could, you know, safely get away with. Any more questions?
probably a slightly COVID related one, but you said that mountain training will sort of look at our D-logs occasionally. If we go out during lockdown for a wild camp on your own, do we need to change the date to a date that's okay?
I don't think they'll be. I don't think they'll be looking quite that careful.
Okay.
and you know, it's a funny thing, isn't it? So COVID, or so what do I do all the time, or what do we all do? We do risk assessments, don't we, all the time? And COVID related risk of you going and spending a night in a tent on your own in the mountains?
0.
Yeah.
I think the risk is ending up in A&E and it being absolutely maxed out, isn't it? I think that's always feels like mine at the moment. So I was doing a scramble, or the climbers' descent at Frogget earlier today, and the thing that crossed through my mind is, if this goes horribly wrong, I've got to drag a mountain rescue team out, and I'm putting them at risk potentially. And I really don't want to be in A&E at the moment because they are just absolutely maxed out.
Yeah.
So that for me, so if you're just in a tent having a night or bivvying, that feels pretty low risk, doesn't it? Particularly if you're doing it, in your local area. But some of these other stuff, I think we do need to be careful and mindful. And again, Chris, I think it comes back to your risk assessment, doesn't it? That you just need to be mindful that And I have to say, I really don't want to be rescued by my friends in Mount Rescue.
No, nor do I.
And end up on photos going, look at this idiot, he was doing something dangerous.
But did you see Loch Arbour's post on that?
No.
Okay, well, it's excellent. So you should look it up. They thought that they were going to get through. I think it would be their first ever January without any call outs.
Okay. Loch Arbour, well.
And they had 2, I think yesterday or the day before, which is pretty amazing. And they said they were totally supportive of the people being out there, and that they'd gone and done, they hadn't done anything wrong. They just had an accident. So yes, we don't want to put any undue pressure on anything. The other thing that I think is quite interesting is that, so Joe's got a nice bikes there, she's keeping all nice and warm, and or like I went sledging with my son Sam on his birthday the other day up at Kirkstone. Interestingly, I am much more worried about sledging or going on a push bike than I am climbing a grade 6 winter route. The residual risk for me, I think, is much higher me cycling around Windermere than it is.
I've had a lot more bruises on my bike in the ice than anything else.
Yeah, than it is, so, and you can never say never whatever you're doing, can you? But I've been rock climbing and mountaineering for 47 years. I've never had a bad injury, not one. But I've come off my push bike in that same time and ended up with serious head injuries on 3 or 4 different occasions. So you kind of go, okay, so for me, it's, I think, way safer me going up into the mountains than it is for me to go out on a bike. Or even local walks, like the worst fall that I've had this winter was just walking up School Knock behind my house on a bit of ice in my wellies. So, and I've climbed some pretty hard routes this winter, so. Risk is a funny thing, isn't it? And it is a problem that people perceive going into the mountains as being highly risky and other things being far less risky. But the reality is, I remember during the first lockdown, I think it was the Mountain Trainer, or they published where we come, all mountain related sports compared to loads of other sports. And we are like way down the list of serious injuries. And yet it's perceived to be a very high risk. occupation. So it's in reality, the numbers don't bear that out. It's
Do you
prejudice.
think that's just the media coverage? When something does go wrong, it's plastered all over the news.
Yeah, that it can be, but also that was why it was so great that Loch Harbour put this thing up, which was really good. And a good friend of mine who's a guide as well, Andy Nelson, is the Glencoe team leader, and he's been posting things of him going out climbing routes and skiing, and now not as Andy Nelson team leader, but anybody who knows him knows that he is the Glencoe team leader, and he's been out in the mountains enjoying himself, and keeping his skills sharp, so that when he does, other people do need his skills, that they aren't blunt, that he's right on it. So.
I think it's good to have risk. I think it keeps you sort of like focused. But if you took risk away, I think some things would be quite boring. So I think risk is good, and as long as it's a calculated risk.
Yeah, a friend of mine a few years ago, quite a lot of years ago, actually 35 probably, did a route on Ben Nevis and called "Don't Die of Ignorance." And I think that's true. I think, and quite often people do things and they're not aware that they're dangerous. And safety comes from an awareness of danger, I think. And I think that's our job as well as outdoor educators, or my job, to try and help people to be aware of what is and what isn't dangerous, so that they can make informed decisions about the level of risk they're taking on.
Sorry, I lost you there for a minute. I was trying to get back.
Right. The interesting thing is as well that Marcus Bailey, was, I think maybe still is, in charge of the licensing authority, he said the most dangerous thing you can do for young people is not expose them to dangerous things. Not sorry?
How they learn.
Yeah.
You don't learn if you don't hurt yourself.
Well, yeah, or just learn about, so what's the safest thing to do is give a child a knife, and which is certainly what we did with Sam, and said, look, this is really sharp. This is how you hold it. This is what you do with it. You can whittle sticks with it. You can do all sorts of different things with it, but don't do this. Don't stick it in yourself, and be respectful of it. It's a tool. It's a good thing. It can be used for lots of really good, useful things, but and similarly with fires, this is how to build a fire. This is, yes, look, oh yeah, that's hurt, didn't it? And this is how you cook marshmallows over the fire, and what's great is, I think, as a society, we are starting to realise that, and the value of things like forest school, putting kids out in the forest and giving them axes and saws, and getting them to light fires, and and they're recognising that is a really, really valuable part of education, and we can be part of that.
When you think that there's children of 4 years old, who are sort of like skinning animals in Papua New Guinea and places like that, so that's the same risk as somebody in the West holding a knife.
Yeah. Well, is it the same risk, because they've actually been taught how to do it properly, whereas probably the ones in the West were never taught how to do it properly. So it's actually
that's the problem, isn't it? Exactly, that is the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem.
The other challenge we have, which I think why forest school is really good, is just to encourage people to be out in nature, and why it's important. Because these people that are coming through, I mean, we take it for granted. We have these national parks that are protected, but if the future generations don't see them as important, then why are they going to continue to be protected? And I know that some of these things are enshrined in laws, but as we've seen, laws can be changed within days to the needs of people. And I saw my local forest school group, which my kids were lucky enough to go to, going up to woods on one of my runs the other day. And I think it's great because, you know, if people don't, you know, not all of them are going to go and appreciate it. And I think this, you know, we've seen this across lots of different things, haven't we, where we need to get the younger generation engaged in things that we feel are important. And for me, as a leader, trying to push that through to another generation, I think that's so important. And I'm sure that's true for a lot of us. I don't think on my own. I just think this is really, you know, both that, how to use things safely in the woods and things like fire. And to be honest, my son's he's only 10, and he's way better at making fires safely than I am. But also just appreciate why these places are important, and that, you know, and it could be anything. And I do think that, you know, I've seen, and I'm sure, you know, a lot of us have, the change in the syllabus for the ML. When I did my ML training in 1997, it was all about being safe in the mountains. And I come around to do my assessment, which I have to admit, not doing with Chris, but doing in Snowdonia, and it was a lot more focus on your clients having a good day out in the hills and learning something, which I think is great. You know, I think that's really important. So it's changing, isn't it? But I think it is important that we not only help people be safe and take risks, but also just value what we've got.
Yeah, and I think that is, you know, and people often say to me, well, why does it matter about, you know, I get them to give talks about, I don't know, fauna and flora or local legends, or, you know, kind of industrial sort of things that have happened in the mountains and all sorts of stuff like that. And I've had, over the years, fantastic talks on the ML. You know, it's just been brilliant, you know, really, really informative. I've had some pretty dull ones too, but mostly they've been, you know, been brilliant. And like, I'm always learning stuff, and, you know, and people say, well, why is that there? Why is that important? Well, it's important because it's broader, isn't it? It's a broader appreciation of everything that we're in, and the way that other people have seen it in other cultures at other times, you know. Really important.
I'm a little curious out of this group, how many of us are working towards qualifications, mountaineering qualifications? That's me as well. Okay, yeah, so it is. So,
well, you are as well, Lou, aren't you?
Well,
sort of.
Haven't quite decided.
Yeah.
maybe the IML. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the IML would be a good fit for you.
I'd say, Chris, one of the things that I was talking to Anne about this a little bit, because one of my worries about the IML, because I was meant to be doing my summer training at Glenmore Lodge last summer, and it was cancelled. And I'm fairly aware that this 5 year, you know, so you have a 5 year kind of trigger. So once you've done your training, then you have summer training. You have 5 years to get through effectively 4 lots of training and 2 whole lots of training and assessment. Although I imagine if I had done it and then I was locked in England in my own county, that presumably there would be extensions available for people that can't do it for you know, government restrictions. But the thing that puts me off a little bit now is Brexit. If I'm honest, you know, yes, it would be great to go to the Alps and teach, and learn, and then go on and, you know, take groups out. But how easy that's going to be in a post, you know, Brexit world, and I don't want to get into politics, but from what I was talking to Anne, it sounds like a lot of paperwork is involved in getting the right paperwork in place to work and operate.
It is currently, but I do. Maybe I'm just an optimist, but I think it will settle after a few years. You know, like, you know, I'm expecting it for the next maybe 5 years to be, you know, lumpy and bumpy and, you know, somewhat difficult, somewhat confusing. But I think it will work itself out.
Okay.
Not a cheap holiday anymore.
Sorry, what was that, David?
It's not a cheap holiday anymore.
No, I think it'll be different, but I don't think, I think it will sort itself out long term.
We'll see, won't we? it's just the IML is such an expensive qualification. So to go through, and I know it's relevant in other countries, but it does seem it feels like it's more relevant in Europe than maybe, operating in Nepal and places. I appreciate that the stuff you're learning is relevant in all of them, but just that that piece of paper behind you.
Absolutely, yeah, because those are more. It's a regulated profession. Yes, in those countries, like guiding, so nobody can call himself a guide in Europe. Well, all of Europe until now, except for the UK, unless you were a guide, you couldn't. It's like I couldn't say I was a doctor or a dent or a vet.
Yeah.
I couldn't work as a vet, but yeah.
It's just, it feels like some hard legit, like if you're going to spend, they're many hundreds of pounds each for each training course, and there's a little bit of me personally thinking, well, I could spend an awful lot of money and never do any work doing it.
Yeah.
Or I could just go and have, rather than doing my ML training, I could just go to Colorado and go up some 15-foot peaks and just have a nice time. I'm not saying that's the only trade-off, and if you're looking at what your options are for working, but I think you're probably right. There are a lot of British people going abroad to work, so there's obviously enough room in the market for them to be there working. So hopefully common sense will come through.
Yes, I'm hopeful.
Okay.
I may prove to be wrong, but that's I think it will sort itself out. Yeah. Yeah. And I think your point generally is interesting. That if you like it, so when I've been out climbing today actually with a lad who wants to become a guide, and he said, he said, he's trying to get all his Scottish grade 5s, sort of 50 routes, and he's nearly there actually. He was saying today that he reckons he's got 45 or something. So he's moving well positively in that way. And he was saying, and he's a really good skier. He's done loads of skiing. So he was saying, what do you see as my biggest block or the biggest thing that's going to stop me, doing my guides? And I said, to him, the thing that you've got that a lot of other people don't have is that you love being with people in the mountains, and you love helping them to get it. And so therefore, the other stuff is detail. I can show you how to hold a rope, how to tie into a crab, how to do a crevasse race. They're just hard skills. They're like tying your shoelaces. You do A, then B, then C, then D, and you can do it. The thing that I can't teach other people is what you've got. So if you want to go into the mountains because you want to go into the mountains, then probably just go into the mountains and get a job, doing IT, and get a job where you can, be quite flexible with where you live and where you work, and then spend lots of time doing great trips in the mountain and fill your boots, that would be great. But certainly, if you love taking people and that, and it's all about them.
Yeah, so I say from my perspective, the thing that's, it was lovely. Today I went out, dropped my kids off at school. They're very fortunate they get to go to school. And I went up for a run, saw stags. I went up along back of White Edges. People know the peaks, and Frogger or Kerber, and then dropped down to the bottom of Frogger and did like a little scramble. And it was lovely, but it's not. For me, I got a lot more excitement out of going and looking for a Douglas fir tree with my daughter at Chatsworth. and we were looking at different pine cones, and we're flicking through the book to try and work out which one's which type of tree. And it's like, no, that's just another giant redwood, because there's just tons of them there, in their formal gardens. And that's way more exciting for me, definitely. And watching people that I've taught previously, I mean, I'm sure a few of the people in this call have the same, where you take people, and particularly my university days, where you're seeing young people come through university and they get into climbing, and they've gone on to be really, really good climbers, and just to be just like that teeny little part of that journey, and to get people excited. And like I say, with the stuff with the forest school, again, it's great. I have to say, it's great to see 3 and 4 year olds staggering around in the woods. And whenever I get an opportunity to go and volunteer and help them with, and it might just be clearing brambles, or like moving, it's like lifting. It's like they need someone to come and help clear some stuff up. So they have like open days. But yeah, no, that bit for me is a really important bit. So no, I don't think just going to Colorado and going to do peaks would make me happy.
Yeah.
But spending thousands and thousands of pounds doing a qualification that I can't really use kind of does concern me. But you're right, it is just admin, isn't it? It's just going to be, there's going to be a process to get through, to get whatever piece of paper you need to work in France sorted.
Yeah. It will just be admin, I think. Yeah, I mean, it will be a bit of a pain in the bum, but we'll get it sorted somehow. Yeah.
No, I have to say, I'm still pretty keen to do it. I think Anne taught me around a little bit with her, like, look, it will be fine. And obviously the biggest challenge at the moment is just knowing when we can go to the Alps. It just seems like I'd be pretty excited if I could come to Lake District and do a masterclass with you, like that, or even go. I know there's nothing really stopping us from going wild camping if we do it kind of under the radar, as it were.
Yeah.
But even just being able to get in, grab my rucksack, jump on a train, and go to Scotland with my tent, and go and do some winter Munros, and just thrash around in the snow. Again, that feels like a little bit of a distant dream at the moment.
It does, but it will become a reality. We just got to wait. So it does. Yeah, it will come back. Yes, Lou, did you have something? Yeah.
I was waving to someone.
Oh, okay, that's right.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, that's all right. Yes. Anybody else? I think we're nearly done. 7 minutes to go. But if you've got any more questions, then do ask. Technical questions, ropey questions, crampony questions.
I've got a technical question about microspikes. I've seen more and more people using them, and I wonder if you have a view on them, including mountain rescue team kind of carrying a stretcher, with a micro, although admittedly in the Peak District, where they're obviously not doing anything too technical.
Yeah. So microspikes are brilliant. I bought my mum some a couple of Christmases ago, and she's loved having them for walking around on icy paths and taking the dog for a walk on icy days. Absolutely brilliant. But the only problem with microspikes, and it's not really a problem with them, is that but they can give you access to some quite serious places where all of a sudden you need crampons, and if you haven't got crampons, they can sort of so in their place they're absolutely brilliant. Icy paths, stuff like that, just great. And combined with a pair of walking sticks, they can be fantastic for just walking around on slippery ground. And a bit of snow, they're great, but they do ball up a lot. And if you get, so where I was today, up on the gully between Cambridge Crags and Beaufort Buttress, rock hard neve, with a big consequential drop, you go on there with a pair of microspikes, well, you're going to be at the bottom in a bloody heap, and I had a bit of a salutary tale as well on microspikes, which is my brother, who's an MIC as well. Anyway, whatever the new one is. But anyway, he's an MIC. He was out for his out just with his son walking off Helvellyn, and I don't know if you know, there's a little steep bit coming down off Brown Cove Crags that often gets a bit of snow that builds up, gets a bit of sun on it, gets refrozen, you know, and it sits there all winter, and usually quite by the end of the winter you've got a pretty serious little bit, and it's there now, or it was there a few weeks ago, and if you take a slip there, you're on sort of, you know, 40-degree ground with a load of boulders at the bottom, you know, so if you pick up any speed, and unfortunately there was a chap who died there, and my brother was the first to come across him. Now, what he'd done was he was using his microspikes. They'd done great. Now he'd got to somewhere where his microspikes were fine, as long as he was in the big icy buckets, he was fine. But I'm not sure why he had to step outside them, or whether he had a trip, and, you know, I don't know. But, you know, I do wonder whether if he'd had a pair of crampons, whether he would have survived, you know. Yeah, Arthur.
I've used aluminium crampons, or carried them when I'm thinking I might or might not need them.
Yeah.
Because they're just very light. And the other thing is crossing, if you're out and you're crossing snow fields and you just don't have anything, something like a sharp rock or something, or if you've got a rope, just rope something across. I've had to make up a few things like that before.
Yeah.
But aluminium crampons, they'll wear down in no time, but they weigh nothing. Yeah,
and yeah, they're not very good on really water ice either, are they? But they're fantastic on snow. Yeah. I use them a lot for ski touring, ski mountaineering, and in fact now you can get ones that are aluminium, all of it except for the front points.
Okay.
You know, so you can get some really light crampons that will still be effective for kicking into something. You know, Gravel make them. I think they're called Mont Blanc. No, they're called Haute Route. Yeah, I think that's what they're called. Yeah, yeah. So you could have something really light and still effective. You know. So
I think for me, the appeal for microspikes is I can put my fell running shoes.
Yeah, great.
So when I'm out, and I think the comments around kind of getting you into more difficulties is interesting though, because I guess it's just to be a bit mindful, don't you, that you're not using them to kind of go up into more difficult grounds, not really thinking about what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and that's all. That's my only negative. But I've never actually used them, but they seem really effective. And you know, I've had a lot of clients use them, and they seem great. You know, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. When I've not used them on my shoes yet, but my partner used them when we saw this mountain rescue team using them as well. And there are a lot. We're on Mantor, which, you know, people know the peaks is a pretty unexciting hill. But it was basically just ice. All the steps were iced over, you know, and everyone just slipping around. And we'd been out for a longer day, and it was great because she's not a particularly experienced mountaineer, and I was pretty happy with the conditions we were in. So I was like, well, you know, so she just popped them on, and then she was just, you know, I'd stuck with my full winter boots, and I was pretty happy moving over the ground, but she just completely, you know, and there's just that kind of like, now she trusts her feet, now she can walk, and we just made a lot of progress. And it was, you know, you watching all these, and I think one of the challenges probably mountain rescue have, particularly around here, is there are a lot of people there that shouldn't be there. I know it sounds a little bit judgmental, but we had someone at the top asking us, you know, which was the fastest way for Mantor, and the way that they were about to start heading was down the gully, you know, which obviously isn't, I mean, yeah, isn't a recommended way down. And there is always a little bit of me that you know, particularly in those harder conditions, where you just kind of think, well, if you need to ask which way it is to go, you shouldn't really be here. You just say we carefully pointed them in the right direction, and as in the safer of the directions, and off they went. But
so at least they were asking.
Yes,
that's a good thing, you know. That they maybe knew that they didn't know, you know, so that's not a bad thing.
Oh yeah, indeed, and more than happy. It's just knowing full well what that gully's like, and
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
you can kind of get down the side of it a little bit, but I really wouldn't want to be going down there when it was icy.
Yeah,
You know, it's families. So, and I think this comes back to what we were talking about before with this. You know, we need to try and set good examples. We need to try and educate people, don't we? We need to try and encourage people. You know, and I think one of the consequences of this current pandemic, and I've got a friend who runs a Thornbridge outdoor centre here. You know, they're not going to get any bookings probably this year. You know, we didn't have many last year, and obviously that's tough for the outdoor industry. But it's generations of it's generations of children missing out on learning something about the outdoors and those skills that you can learn about nature, but also those kind of team building and bonding things that you get from doing stuff in the outdoors, which, you know, can be really great for kids with, you know, all sorts of issues, can't it?
Yeah, and it's tragic. Yeah, it is really, you know, that side. But hopefully we can be part of the answer for that. You know, so yeah. Okay, great. Well, we're finishing. It's 9 o'clock. So hopefully that was useful. Really nice to see you. Nice to see Jo for the first time. I have actually been out with Jo, and we've seen her a little bit more like a few too many times recently with the dog.
I've seen you as much times with the dog as with her.
Yeah. So anyway, but nice to see you, Jo, and welcome to the group. And nice to see the others. I guess hopefully that was useful. David, Lathan, you haven't said anything much, but hopefully that was useful chat. And are people interested in carrying on doing another one, or is that?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, we're all good. Okay, great. So we'll keep doing them, and hopefully it's a little bit of an encouragement and getting you thinking about being in the mountains and doing all them things that you love doing, and hopefully you're not going to be too frustrated by having to wait a little longer until we can go. Okay, I'll finish there. Lovely to see you all.
Yeah. Take care, Chris. Thanks again.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.